To be one way.
What?
You want it to be one way.
Man, I don't
You
know
want
what
it to
you...
be one
Man,
way.
stop! Stop saying that.
What is the other way?
Boxing's always been affiliated with greatness. You know, one of these sports, when you're talking about a sport where one man versus another man inside of a ring and only one can walk out victorious, you're talking about a formula and a recipe for greatness. It's a space where greatness can be achieved, unlike indifferent from a lot of other spaces, right? It's a lot difficult and at the same time easier because it's all based off of what you're doing. You have nobody else to blame for your greatness, and you have nobody else to blame in your lack of greatness when it comes to these fighting sports, combat sports. So the question is, Gervonta Tank Davis in his career has accomplished a lot of things on a financial level in the space that a lot of people in his same shoes who came in around the same time just wasn't able to achieve that notoriety and ability to be such a great prize fighter. But now we're in a chapter in his career where people are starting to bring up things like greatness. He's about to be 30 years old soon, and the question is he a great fighter? A lot of boxes to check when we're talking about that. Has he reached the level of greatness? Is he a great fighter? Of course he is, but has he reached the level of greatness, and what does it take for him to get there if he hasn't gotten there yet? I mean, it's a lot to unpack. We're going to try our best to do it on this segment right here. It's your boy Claymore Rain. This is the ATP Combat Media Show. Let's go. All right. Bring it in.
They hate when you elevate.
It's your boy, Claymore Rain. This is the ATP Combat Media Show. Welcome one, welcome all. Shout out to all my subscribers. If this is your first time coming to the channel to see this content, I advise you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell icon so you are getting alerts when all this content drops. Salute. Gervonta Tank Davis. Always a topic of discussion, right? Shout out to Gervonta Tank Davis, that camp over there. His business model, him as a business, as an entity, is something that is undeniable. We can't and we won't dismiss any of his accomplishments as a boxer in the space. And we definitely, more importantly, to focus more, laser focus in on the accomplishment of being able to generate so much interest, so much money for himself, generational wealth that he's built for himself with the way he's carried himself in boxing inside of the ring, dealing with what he's been able to deliver to the fan base, of course, as far as action-packed, explosive, athletic, be able to show his IQ in the ring. When you look at the fact of how, he deals with his height, short arms, and he's able to compensate for those things in such an efficient way that you don't even take it into consideration when he gets into a fight. Even if he's fighting somebody who's twice his size, you might go into it thinking like Gervonta Davis is probably going to win because he's just shown you that he's so multifaceted in this boxing space. Really exciting fighter, and have to give him his flowers. We'll always give him his flowers when we're talking about him when it comes to this. But Abdul Wahid, this chapter of his career, this chapter of your career, if you're watching this, I think there's no secret out there that we're all anticipating and hoping to see this next chapter of his career where he's fighting these athletic fighters, generational talent fighters that we all want to see him against. We just understand how entertaining and how exciting it would be to see these fights, and we all want to see him do this, right? But he's a 135-pound fighter in the division that he's in. He has a lot of options of who he can fight. He could probably fight anybody in the world. I'm sure if Gervonta Davis would have put a kite out there to Deontay Wilder, explaining that he wanted to fight him. I'm sure it's he could get it done. Nobody's going to deny an opportunity for the payday, at least at a minimum, to fight Gervonta Tank Davis. But I think as a fan base of boxing, we also understand that there are those fighters out there that we want to see him in the ring with for obvious reasons. When you're talking about Shakur Stevenson, we're talking about somebody who has a high IQ, understands how to control distance. A very disciplined fighter with himself. He's a generational talent as well. And we would love to see those two skill sets inside the ring across from each other and see what that turns into. Same thing with a Devin Haney or Vasily Lomachenko or a Teofimo Lopez. And even now, Frank Martin being brought into the conversation as somebody who's going to give us that look. Give Gervonta Davis that look, because I'll quote to Calvin Ford, who's mentioned that as much as we've seen Gervonta Tank Davis do inside that ring, and as amazed as we are at what he's been able to do in that ring, that we've yet to see even a small percentage of what he's capable of doing. And one has to ask himself, how do we get to see that? What would motivate a Gervonta Tank Davis to go into that bag and go into that other huge percentage, huge variety of different strategies and adjustments and approaches and things that will showcase his boxing IQ on a whole level that we haven't seen before? And this content creator would say that it would be who stands across the ring from him that's going to bring that out. It would be somebody who would have to bring that out of Gervonta Tank Davis. Not anybody, obviously, with hindsight, would be able to do that. So there's the interest right there. There's the interest for the real boxing fan who wants to see great boxing, doesn't want to just celebrate a boxer and be a fanatic of a boxer in one particular way, but more importantly, wants to see great boxing in the ring. There is your vested interest to want to motivate a Gervonta Tank Davis to fight a fighter that you want to see him fight, because that's what has to go through your mind. I think every boxing fan in his own right is a legitimate matchmaker for their own vested interest, right? You might not be a trained matchmaker. You're not working for a Top Rank or a Matchroom or a PBC or any other boxing promotion, but for yourself, you should have the authority over yourself to want to see what you want to see and look for that fighter in the fighters that are available and see which fighter is going to give you that look that you want to see. If you're not doing that, if what you're doing is saying that no matter who this fighter fights, that's okay with you, you don't even care anymore, then one could question your love for the sport of boxing, and one could maybe question as to whether or not you're just a fanboy or a fanatic of one particular boxer, to the point to where it doesn't matter, just his presence alone is okay with you, and you don't want to put any waves in the water. You don't want to shake up the hornet's nest and begin to demand anything from your fighter. In any other sports, that wouldn't apply, right? We all love LeBron James, but we want to see him perform. When he performs, we hold him to a LeBron James standard. If he doesn't perform to the standard of LeBron James, we're not going to dislike him and throw him away, but there's no issues with criticizing and say LeBron wasn't LeBroning today. Michael Jordan wasn't Michael Jordan today, right? Clarissa Shields wasn't Clarissa Shielding today. There's no hatred for the athlete when you do that. What you're doing is you've held them to a high standard. Probably in these situations that I brought up, to a higher standard than you would hold somebody else, right? So unfortunately, what comes with it? Well, when you're as talented as Gervonta Tank Davis is, what comes with it is people hold you to a higher standard. And that's a compliment within itself, obviously. That's an understanding of how much we're acknowledging who you are within itself. And can never, well, I won't say can never, because you can do whatever you want to do, but should never be taken as a disrespect. Some people can cross that line, but I think at the end of the day, just the mere request and the understanding that we want to see you with other fighters that should not discount anything you've done in your career, but should just speak to how much we are counting everything you've done in your career, and we just want to see you hit the next level. So what does that mean? So when you see a fighter like Conor Benn have a performance like he did. And listen, Conor Benn had a decent little performance. I have no issues with his performance. I do understand going into his fight that there were expectations of him to end the fight in a certain way. We did think that, well, and I'm not going to say we, because I didn't necessarily believe that, because I did not know who Pistol Pete Dobson was. But from my understanding that, I do understand that we haven't seen him fight before, really. And, most of us, I think, out here, as far as boxing fans are concerned, had no real tangible history to refer to even understand how the fight should go. But we just understood that from what we've seen in the past with Conor Benn, that we were expecting a certain result in that fight. And Conor Benn, of course, also promoting himself, saying that the results were going to be in a certain way, to look for this fight to end inside of a certain amount of rounds, definitely before the 12th round, right? And we didn't see that. So I think people looking into that fight might say that performance with Conor Benn wasn't Conor Benn-ish. Conor Benn wasn't Conor Benning, right? Holding him to the standard that he's put for himself based on the results he's had in other matches. Compound that with the fact that he's had PD allegations, and that he's appealing accusations that he's had popping hot on a test, and people are starting to be like, I wonder where that strength came from, all that explosive power he had. Where did that come from? Did that come from who he is, or was this altered by performance enhancement drugs that he was participating in? So he didn't end it that way, and a lot of people, because of that, attributed all of his past results to possible PED use. And then you see Gervonta Tank Davis find interest in this fight. Somebody who's sitting at 147-pound division, but ultimately in that fight was fighting at 150.6 pounds. Gervonta being somebody who competes at 135 pounds, and everybody around him, all the people who seem to have vested interest in this fighter, have all shot down any ideas of Gervonta Tank Davis actually moving up in weight to fight anybody, because he's just too small. These fighters in these weight classes are simply too big for Gervonta Tank Davis. Fine, as a fan of boxing, I didn't feel that way. I can say presently, I still don't feel that way. Why? Why don't I feel that way? I've seen him compete at 140 pounds. I've seen him win a title in that division. I've seen him stop an official 140-pounder who right now is the interim champion at the 147-pound weight class division for the WBC. I've seen him do things that would align with the fact that he's able to fight at 140 pounds. Now, look, without a doubt, he doesn't have to. And if he doesn't want to, that's a good enough reason. Why do I like vanilla ice cream over chocolate? Because I like vanilla ice cream. It doesn't have to be deep, right? It doesn't have to be deep. We can respect him in his position to say if he doesn't want to fight at a weight class, he just doesn't want to. But as far as the ability to or not to, fair and unfair, things of that nature, not a subscriber of that. Definitely not a subscriber to that idea that he can't do it. I think we know he can do it, especially against a fighter like Devin Haney, who just has only had one fight at 140 pounds. His majority of his career up to this point has been at 135 pounds, who is unified and became undisputed at the same weight class you're in, and who you also put on a list as somebody who you want to fight before your career is done with. Understanding that with all those variables that I put into that would say to me personally that a fight with Devin Haney is a very realistic thing. Very realistic thing, and some might say should happen. But just based off the fact that Gervonta has shown interest in it happening, that would be enough, to a vested interest for Gervonta Tank Davis to want to fight Devin Haney. And the next question would have to be, where could the fight happen at where Gervonta's fighting a healthy Devin Haney and Devin Haney's fighting a healthy Gervonta Tank Davis? Understanding and acknowledging, because I think people have a hard time doing this, accepting the fact that Devin Haney has officially made a statement that he cannot make that weight in a healthy way, number one. And number two, he's backed up by not only fighting at 140 pounds, but also vacating all the titles in the 135-pound division. If that's not a statement within itself, I don't know what else you need to be stated to you to prove to you that this man does not want to and will not go back to 135 pounds to fight. And even if he were to go back to 135 pounds to fight, it would be fair to say that it would not be the same Devin Haney, right? Nobody should be wanting to complain or argue that him fighting 135 pounds would not be the same Devin Haney that will be fighting at 140 pounds. If we can agree on that point alone, then we can stop with the idea that what Devin Haney needs to do to fight Gervonta Tank Davis is go down to 135 pounds. You compound that with the fact that Gervonta Davis has not made any statements or sent any official offers to say that he needs Devin Haney to come down, or he wants Devin Haney to come down to 135 pounds to fight him, and that he will and cannot fight Devin Haney at 140 pounds. You combine all those things right there, the next question has to be, what would it take for Gervonta Tank Davis to fight at 140 pounds to fight Devin Haney? Well, if you listen to his fan base and you listen to the people around Gervonta Tank Davis, the Leonard Ellerbees and so forth, who have vested interest in this man's success for some reason, even though consensus is they have nothing to do with Gervonta anymore. He has his own promotional company. He's no longer underneath the Money Team banner. He works with Al Heyman in an advisor capacity. That's how Al Davis supposedly works with Gervonta Tank Davis, and his management is Tom Brown with TGB Promotions. But I digress. As most of his fan base will say, if you want to do any business with Tank Davis, that you should be looking for Al Heyman. And Leonard Ellerbe has also seemed to be a credible source of information when it comes to the business of Tank Davis. So that being said, based on what they've said, it has to make sense business-wise for Gervonta Tank Davis to entertain any fight. Okay. And they've also gone on record to say that if there's going to be a fight with Gervonta Tank Davis, that those guys who want to fight him are not in a position to offer him anything. They should not be offering him anything, because no offers will be received by them, because the only person who can deal with any kind of offer conversation would be the A side of the conversation, who's everybody has universally agreed across the board that the A side is Gervonta Tank Davis. Respect. I myself subscribe to the idea that Gervonta Tank Davis is the A side to this conversation. But at the same time, to go on record also to say that because of that, the only person who can make this fight is Gervonta Tank Davis. And the only reason these fights aren't happening is because of Gervonta Tank Davis. Got to take the good with the bad. A-side privileges don't only come with perks, it comes with accountability, responsibility. When you take on the position of being the boss, you take the bad with the good. When things go bad, they come to the boss. When things go good, they give it to the boss. Both can coexist in the same space. Taking one and making the other one not part of the deal is hypocritical of anybody to speak from that position. So being fair and not in the spirit of not being hypocritical, we have to also agree that if he is the A side, and if he's the only one who can send out a contract to make a fight happen, and nobody else outside of him can offer him anything, then it is fair to say that the responsibility falls on those shoulders of Abdul Wahid, formerly known as Gervonta Tank Davis, to initiate any negotiations or conversations when it comes to making a fight. And if anybody wants to know why a fight has not happened in between Gervonta Tank Davis and anyone, not just Devin Haney, the responsibility can only fall in one place. That's who you need to go to, clearly. If you want Gervonta to fight somebody, or as a fan and you are interested in it, and you want to know why you're not seeing the fans, logically, you have to go to Tank. Go to his Twitter, go to his Instagram, go to his social media, and ask him the question why it's not happening, because we all know, based on the information that's coming from his side of this conversation, the people who are interested and have vested interest in his success have made it clear that the only way that can happen is through Gervonta Tank Davis is doing it. No other way, not even His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh has any say in how this should go. I'm okay with that. I think the fan base needs to become okay with that and understand that as well. Respect to his position, but the position doesn't only come with privileges, it also comes with accountability and responsibility. So now when we see Gervonta Tank Davis, who everybody has known to be supposedly a quiet person who doesn't coordinate his own business dealings, seeing a counter bend and seeing an opportunity in beating a counter bend, some people would call that a cherry pick, to see weaknesses in him and say that I can do this to him, and look to not only comment on what he saw, but also to push it further to say that I'm willing to speak to a person that has been identified as somebody who would never do business with, Eddie Hearn, for anybody who's in the dark of who I'm talking about, to reach out to him and say, let's negotiate and let's talk business about fighting the Conor Ben. For the fan base of Gervonta Tank Davis, I would say, a black eye on you guys for speaking out of turn, for speaking on somebody else who can speak for themselves, for attacking, ostracizing, scrutinizing, for dismissing anybody who has an opinion, and to paint a narrative as if your opinion is fact and any opinion outside of that opinion is a false narrative that's being pushed. A black eye on you for thinking that you ever had that type of authority, or that you ever had that type of wisdom or knowledge, because those are two separate things we can talk about, right? Knowledge and wisdom, right? Having it and knowing how to wield it, owning a sword and knowing how to use a sword. I digress. We don't need to get into deep philosophical conversations on this segment right here. But I'll say that to speak from that point of view, to attack somebody else with another point of view, just for it to come full circle and have the person who you've been speaking for all of this time so confidently speak against everything that you've basically been saying up to this point. He doesn't feel like he's too little. He has no problem performing outside of his weight class. He's actually very confident in his ability to go ahead and win anywhere he fights at. The issues between him and Devin Haney don't seem to have anything to do with weight class at this point. Seems like it has all to do with personal preference, which is his right to have personal preference. It is Abdul Wahid's right to have preference on who he wants to fight and have his own personal reasons as to why he doesn't want to fight them. And they don't have to be because of weight, bullying, or the things. It could be of an assortment of things. Clearly, by the way, hindsight is always 20/20. Hindsight just is, right? So, do I believe you guys are going to begin to own any type of, or take any responsibility for the false narratives that you guys have pushed out there? I wouldn't expect it. We have to learn to move on in life and understand that closure is not promised to anybody. We can't expect anybody to be honest with themselves. So being honest with you is just a whole another conversation. Who are you, right? If they're not going to do it for themselves, then how can you expect them to do it for you? But staying on topic to say that, okay, now at this point, he's trying to negotiate to fight with a Conor Ben. He's seen something in there for himself. He's seen some vested interest. He's seen an opportunity in this situation, whether it be monetary, whether it being ability to stop him, whether it being weakness in what he's able to do. He's seen something that he didn't see before that fight. He sees it after the fight. After seeing the fight, he sees something in there for himself. Okay, fine. That's okay. There's an opportunity there with him, and we know that Gervonta Davis is not blind to an opportunity. We know what drives him. He's a prize fighter, and he's driven by making money. The fan base, the boxing space is going crazy because they're trying to understand, if you can go to a Conor Ben and find an opportunity to fight him, what is stopping Gervonta Tank Davis from fighting Devin Haney at this point? What is stopping Gervonta Davis, or respectfully, Abdul Wahid, formerly known as Gervonta Tank Davis, what is stopping him from coordinating this fight with Devin Haney? Now that we know it's not about Call Al, we understand that it's not about weight. What is it? Is it about money? Well, you got a country who's willing to sponsor, finance, make it worth your while in a monetary way to make this fight happen, and you're not entertaining that conversation either way. Leave it to his fan base to push their narrative. There is no money over there like that. We're over exaggerating on the amount of money or the ability of this country to finance an opportunity that would intrigue somebody like Gervonta Davis, who clearly has all the options in front of him. Why would he entertain an option with a turkey a la sheep? You know, spaces have gone out there to discredit this man even. Oh, he's not a prince. Oh, he's only worth $1.5 million. They've even minimalized him down to a YouTuber, equivalent to themselves. Equivalent to themselves. Who is this guy to be brought up in conversations about offering Gervonta Tank Davis anything when this man himself is a nobody? He needs to go to XYZ, ABCD, 123, Section A/45, all types of places he needs to go to before he can even speak about money. A campaign to discredit this man and what he can do and what he's done in the sport already. With pay-per-views he's held, with the heavyweight card that he put together that nobody in the United States could have ever imagined happening. Fighters speaking on it, legendary fighters who were in the game speaking on their amazement of what they've seen when they've gone to these events, how they'd never seen anything like that before, how no other promoter could ever put something like this. It would take somebody with resources beyond any other promoter's resource to put together what this guy's put together. But it's more important to discredit him, because by discrediting him, then we take away any kind of legitimacy of Devin Haney being able to be interested in and pursuing a fight with Gervonta Tank Davis to where he can make the amount of money he feels like he deserves. That's fine as well. Be a fan of who you want to be a fan of. I've had to learn the hard way about this space, this content creating space that I'm in right now. I'm the fanatics that live in this space. And when they have their narratives that they're trying to drive home, the extents that they will go to drive that narrative. I'm learning. I understand now. I didn't before. I do understand now. But in the spirit of great fights happening, the best fighting the best, we have to hold these fighters accountable to that, because that's what we're here for. So when Gervonta Tank Davis goes ahead and he says that he wants to fight Conor Benn at a weight class that is way beyond the weight class of the fighter who's in front of him, who everybody actually wants to see, it's fair to bring up cherry picking. It's fair to bring up choreography. It's fair to bring in, if he's not going to fill in the space about why he doesn't want to fight Devin Haney in front of him, then we can go into fear energy. We can go into difficulty energy. We can go into as whether or not he wants to fight somebody who's going to challenge him or not, or is he just more concerned about the easiest way to his point B? What's his point B? Wealth, clearly, not legacy. You have fans out there who'll say we need to just accept the fact that he's not interested in legacy, that he's interested in money. Well, to those fans who say that, I can co-sign and subscribe to that idea. I can accept him being somebody who's not into legacy and who's not into anything else but making money. But at the same time, we have to know what comes with that. What does that come with? Well, what it comes with is you are not great. Greatness is aligned with being uncomfortable. Greatness is with dealing with adversity. Being able to go past adversity and still be great is where greatness comes from. Greatness is not aligned with cherry picks and aligned with easy fights or the easiest fights that you can find for the most money you can get. That's not what greatness is aligned with. Floyd Mayweather is not great because he made all of this money. He's great because of the adversity, because of 23 champions he fought more than anybody else did, fighting the best of the best when he was inside of that ring. That's what he's great for. I wonder if Floyd acknowledges or understands that that's what his greatness is aligned with. But I digress and I say I'm willing to accept that Gervonta Tank Davis is not a legacy-driven fighter, that he's a money-driven fighter, a prize fighter. But is his fan base willing to accept the fact that he's not a great fighter? Is his fan base willing to accept what a great fighter looks like and what it takes to be a great fighter? Or will they just concede, compromise the integrity of a sport that's been here well before Gervonta Tank Davis and will be here well after him? Will you guys concede to the idea that your fighter is not a great fighter and we should just leave him alone? We should just leave him alone at this point when it comes to the conversation of great fighters. Fighters like Devin Haney, Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, even Canelo Alvarez, as much as I'm against the way how he's moving presently right now at this moment, as far as fighting David Benavidez is concerned, I can say he's done great things. He's gone out there and tested himself, went into weight classes that weren't for him, challenged himself, tried to find people out there who maybe could beat him, who can give him that opportunity to prove that he is who he is, and he's done it. I can give him credit in the greatness category. All these fighters that we can go into conversation with, Muhammad Ali, with the Rumble in the Jungle, fighting somebody who was a young bull in his prime. He could have lost his life in that fight. A lot of people will credit the way he, his latter part of his life went as far as the use of his, his faculties, his mind, everything. A lot of people credit that to that fight because he just went through and came back, hell and back to win that fight. Made him great. Thriller in Manila made him great, leaving his comfort zone, leaving his country to go somewhere else to compete on a high level, to prove to the world and himself of who he already knew he was. Can we put Gervonta Tank Davis in these conversations without him doing the same thing that these fighters did before him? Me personally, people, family, I can't. But everybody has their own personal checklist of boxes that need to be checked off to call somebody whatever they want to call them. It's kind of like that pound for pound list. It's a real personal thing. But me personally, family, I can't do that. All right? There are standards out there for a reason. Boxes that need to be checked for a reason. And I don't see greatness happening without being uncomfortable. And if your fighter doesn't want to do that, then your fighter isn't great. He's a great entertainer. He's a great performer in the ring. He makes you scream and like an Usher fan. But he's not checking the boxes for greatness. Not for me. So, that's my stance on the situation. You know that what the comment section is there for. It's there for you to put your point of view on it. You could like, subscribe, hate. Be great, though, in whatever you do. I can't control that. But my take on it is, if you can fight Conor Benn at 147 pounds, if you see an opportunity to fight him and you're willing to leave your comfort zone to go and fight him, then the conversation of Devin Haney always will come back as somebody who you ducked and did not want to fight because of a challenge that you weren't great enough to approach. You weren't great enough. You won't be called a great fighter unless you do something great. I can't give you credit for doing something you haven't done. Can you do it? Oh, this content creator has no questions or concerns about can you do it. The question from this content creator will always be, will you do it? And another question will be, why didn't you do it? Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Remember to subscribe. If this is your first time at the channel, please remember to subscribe. And you got to hit them bell icons, because if you don't, you won't get the alert when this comes out. And you know how boxing news is. These takes are time sensitive. They're only hot if you hear them at the right time. So make sure you hit that bell icon. But on that note, and at this point, we out.
They hate when you elevate. The second of losses, I'm handing them out, yeah, I had to go delegate. It feel like I'm floating, I'm lost in the moment, I swear I could levitate. They never believed that I would really fly.